In the heart of a desolate land, now a sprawling graveyard for countless fallen souls, the remnants of a war that could never be won lingered. Life had been stripped away in the relentless pursuit of victory, leaving the few survivors with a single, primal desire: survival. Beyond this instinct, there seemed little reason to continue in a world so thoroughly scarred by conflict. Yet, among the survivors, one figure had endured through unimaginable hardships, emerging as the protagonist of our tale. Having faced defeat 98 times, he now approached what he believed might be the final chapter of his arduous journey. A brilliant, almost blinding light beckoned him forward as he stepped into a vast chamber, where a formidable cadre of sentinel golems awaited. As he surveyed the towering figures before him, he couldn't help but question whether this was truly his 20th mission. Behind the imposing golems, a dark tunnel stretched into the unknown, suggesting these sentinels guarded something far more significant. His resolve hardened, and with a focused determination, he summoned his weapon. A crimson scythe materialized in his grip, its blade gleaming ominously. The moment the golems caught sight of the weapon, their eyes flared with renewed intensity, as if awakening from a deep slumber. With a unified purpose, these colossal sentinels advanced, their heavy weapons poised to strike. The battle commenced as they launched their coordinated assault, aiming to crush the lone warrior. However, his agility proved to be his greatest asset, allowing him to evade their deadly blows with swift, graceful movements. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. With unshakable determination, he invoked the insignia of death, a powerful incantation. Above the leading golem, a dark, menacing circle adorned with the symbol of a grim skull appeared, marking the sentinel with a sinister curse. Cloaked in a fiery, dark aura, our hero's speed surged beyond the golem's reach. Seizing the moment, he delivered a devastating strike. The crimson scythe carved through the guardian's massive frame, leaving a gaping wound in its wake. As he stepped back, a satisfied smile crossed his face. The plan had worked flawlessly. Insignia of death had doubled the damage of his attack, ensuring his success. But the victory was short-lived. As the first golem crumbled, the remaining sentinels surged forward, their fury unbridled. They charged at him, intent on tearing him apart, the battle far from over. He was like a mere insect before these colossal monsters, dwarfed by their towering forms. Yet, the overwhelming disparity in size did nothing to deter him. Undaunted by their intimidating presence, he launched himself into the air, summoning a technique known as the Knight of Death. This skill imbued his weapon with a sinister, dark energy specifically designed to counter the sanctity of his opponents. Slowly, the darkness spread, consuming the radiant light that once bathed the temple in a holy glow. The golems, guardians of the sacred place, were soon engulfed in the encroaching shadow, rendering them blind to their surroundings. Seizing the opportunity, the hero unleashed a cataclysmic strike, a wave of energy so powerful it could obliterate an entire horde of enemies in an instant. However, despite his calm demeanor, it quickly became evident that even this massive attack had failed to harm the guardian golems. With uncanny precision, the holy creatures retaliated, charging their arrows with the pure elements of fire and ice before launching them at the hero with deadly accuracy. Each arrow whizzed past him, narrowly missing its mark, threatening to end him with every shot. Realizing the imminent danger, the hero knew he needed to move faster to avoid the relentless barrage. Without hesitation, he leaped directly into the path of the advancing golems, meeting them head-on. His incredible speed allowed him to create afterimages that bewildered the guardians, causing them to strike at illusions rather than the real target. In a counterattack, one of the golems notched several arrows in rapid succession, firing them with such velocity that they broke the speed of light, obliterating nearly every illusion the hero had created. Despite the grave situation, the hero remained composed, even managing a taunting smile. He goaded the golems, mockingly suggesting that their efforts were far from enough to defeat him. But his confident facade quickly faded when a sudden burst of light erupted beneath him. To his shock, an unexpected magical seal on the floor had triggered a trap, summoning a massive block of ice that encased him completely, immobilizing him. His vaunted speed, which had been his greatest asset just moments before, was now utterly useless. Trapped, he fought with all his might to shatter the ice, slowly causing cracks to form. As he struggled, the golems closed in, one of them preparing to strike a fatal blow with a colossal spear. The cracks in the ice grew wider, but it still refused to break. In a desperate bid for freedom, the hero invoked another powerful skill, moonlight destruction. The ice surrounding him turned a deep crimson, and with a flash of brilliant red light, it shattered, releasing him from his icy prison. The unleashed attack not only freed him but also annihilated the guardian golem standing before him, unleashing the full power he had been holding back. His equipment, now enhanced by the use of this skill, underwent a transformation, becoming even more formidable. He acknowledged that he had come dangerously close to losing the battle, nearly failing the mission. After expending considerable time and energy battling the guardian golems, the hero made a crucial decision: to end the fight with a single, all-consuming strike. As the dark, malevolent aura around his scythe grew more intense, signaling the impending climax of the confrontation, the guardian golems prepared their most devastating attacks in response. Weapons capable of mass destruction, arrows charged with potent magic, and powerful seals were all ready, setting the stage for the final, decisive clash. Our hero retaliated with a powerful stomp, channeling immense energy into his scythe as he prepared to strike. With a fierce determination, he unleashed his moonlight destruction skill, now amplified by an overwhelming surge of dark power. But this time, the aura surrounding him was further enhanced by another skill, the red moon. The result was a devastating slash with a much wider reach, similar to the one that had shattered the ice earlier. The once dominant golems were cleaved through effortlessly, their massive forms falling to the ground as lifeless husks. As the protagonist landed, a sense of relief washed over him, knowing that these formidable enemies were finally defeated. Without hesitation, he ventured deeper into the mysterious area, heading towards the chamber that the Guardians had been protecting. However, as he advanced, an unsettling feeling crept over him. The surroundings resembled a temple, but there was something eerily vacant about the place. He approached the door at the far end, uncertain of what awaited him beyond it. As he neared, a magic circle inscribed on the floor began to glow and shift. With resolute determination, the hero stepped into the center of the circle, curious to see what would happen next. A rueful smile crossed his lips as he stood there, wondering if this would be the moment he finally completed the game on his 99th attempt. But his hope was quickly shattered when a notification appeared, informing him that only one player out of 5 was present on the magic circle. The harsh reality hit him: he needed a group of 5 to access the boss room. The notification warned that failing to meet this requirement would result in death. As he absorbed this grim truth, the weight of all his struggles and sacrifices seemed to evaporate. A golden light enveloped him, forming an impenetrable barrier that resisted all his efforts to escape. In his final moments, he cursed the absurdity of this last, impossible prerequisite, but his anger was futile. His body began to disintegrate, and he couldn't help but question if this was truly the end. The grim realization dawned on him as the game confirmed his death, with the countdown ticking away the last seconds of his life. But just as despair threatened to consume him, a hidden power activated, a rune known as regression. This final act would mark the 100th use of the regression rune, sending the last surviving hero back in time to the moment before his first mission began. With the activation of the rune, it would vanish forever, but the protagonist would start his journey anew, embarking on his 100th regression. The scene shifts to a Korean palace, situated in the heart of the city, where the story begins once again. It is the last day of the year, and a crowd has gathered to celebrate the coming of the new year. As the final 5 seconds of the year approached, a radiant blue aura enveloped the body of a lone figure. His discomfort was palpable as he realized that he had returned to his previous life. The moment he glanced at his hands, recognition dawned: this was the very instant before everyone was pulled into that stupid game. Clenching his fists, the man recalled how close he had come to winning, vowing to change his fate as he prepared to face the challenge once more. He was in the 20th round, teetering on the brink of another failure. As the clock ticked down to the final 2 seconds before disaster struck, he fantasized about freezing time, longing for just a moment more to find a way out. His mind flashed back to the message he received from the system after his last death. This was his 100th use of the regression rune. The stakes were higher than ever, and he knew this might be his final chance to win. As the year's last seconds approached, the man who would be our protagonist steeled himself, determined to finish the game once and for all. He couldn't forget the critical requirement he failed to meet during the 20th round, the need to recruit 4 additional players. Now, as he prepared for what was to come, he began scanning the crowd, searching for the right people to join him. Just moments before the countdown to the new year, another figure came into view, an acquaintance of the protagonist, standing with a group of friends in the bustling city center, ready to welcome the new year. Among them was a bald man who, in the midst of the festivities, wondered aloud about his future after graduation. He jokingly asked his friend if he should take up a job as a delivery driver. The man named Youngman, who would later be revealed as our protagonist's former tormentor, responded with a grin, declaring his ambition to become a mob boss. His friends were taken aback, unsure if Youngman was serious or just joking. But Youngman, with a carefree attitude, argued that life was too short not to live it to the fullest. As his friends pondered the wisdom of keeping their distance from Youngman after graduation, laughter broke out among them. They realized that associating with a would-be gangster might not be the best life choice. The bald man then teased Youngman, asking what would become of his personal shuttle after they graduated, a thinly veiled reference to the person Youngman had bullied throughout high school. The mention of this shuttle conjured an image in Youngman's mind, a downtrodden, defeated individual who had always been at his beck and call. Laughing, Youngman assured his friends that he had no intention of letting go of his shuttle, even after graduation. The group found this hilarious, and one of them mentioned that he had recently seen the shuttle nearby. At that exact moment, our protagonist was enveloped in a radiant light, regressing back to his 100th and possibly final attempt. As he reappeared, his expression was calm yet resolute, a stark contrast to the timid demeanor Youngman had come to expect. Youngman, now facing his former victim, was struck by the change. Something was different about the person standing before him. He seemed older, more confident, almost as if he had lived through countless lifetimes. The protagonist met Youngman's gaze, something he had never dared to do before. His newfound confidence unnerved Youngman, who found himself confused and irritated by this unexpected shift. Just as Youngman was about to react, his friends intervened, reminding him that there would be plenty of time to settle scores later. After all, today marked the start of a new year. Taking their words to heart, Youngman reluctantly backed down, deciding to let the incident slide for now. The group resumed their celebration, believing themselves to be grown-ups now, and exchanged wishes for a happy new year. Meanwhile, our protagonist silently prepared for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that this time, he was determined to change his fate. A mysterious voice suddenly echoed through the air, interrupting the celebration. It was a voice that carried an otherworldly quality, filled with both amusement and disdain. The voice remarked on how peculiar humans were, daring to celebrate the new year without any understanding of what was truly happening around them. The crowd, startled, began searching frantically for the source of the voice. Then, from the midst of the confusion, a majestic figure emerged. She was adorned in a flowing white dress, and her magnificent wings shimmered with a radiant light. Her presence commanded attention, and her voice, though serene, carried an underlying menace. As she looked down upon the gathered people, a mocking smile played on her lips, finding their ignorance amusing. She commented on how humans were no better than caged monkeys, oblivious to their fate. The appearance of this celestial being captivated everyone in the city center. Her beauty was so overwhelming that most onlookers were entranced, unable to look away, everyone except the hero. He recognized her immediately and felt a deep-seated loathing rise within him. He had seen this exact scenario unfold 99 times before, and each time, his hatred for this moment only grew stronger. The angelic figure tried to stifle her laughter, but it spilled out nonetheless, laced with contempt. She sneered at the humans, calling them trash for being so easily mesmerized by her appearance. Her time was too valuable to waste on such meaningless admiration, she said. If they could see her so clearly, then surely they could hear her just as well, she mused with a smirk. One man in the crowd, fed up with her mockery, shouted at her, demanding to know who she was. He accused her of merely cosplaying as an angel. The hero remained silent, watching as the scene played out just as it had before. The angel's smile never wavered, but her demeanor darkened. Her eyes shifted to a deep, menacing red, and her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. In an instant, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. The man who had dared to challenge her was now nothing more than a memory. Yeo Min, one of the bystanders, could only gasp in horror. The angel, her sweet voice now gone, warned the crowd with a deadly seriousness. She declared that no one was to speak to her with such disrespect again. Humans, she said, were far too insignificant to question her or act with any semblance of arrogance in her presence. Those who dared would meet the same fate as the fool who had just perished. She went on, her tone laced with condescension, explaining that humanity had fallen to a pitifully low status. As she prepared to reveal the reason for their current predicament, the hero could only sigh, knowing what was to come. With a twisted smile, the angel announced that they were all now part of a game. From this moment forward, on the 1st of every month, their souls would be transported to another dimension to compete in 20 rounds of this cruel game. This, she declared, was the only way humans would now exist, playing her game, trapped in a cycle of survival and despair. For the next few days, they would be consumed by the tasks they were given, focusing entirely on completing each one. If they succeeded, they would be rewarded and returned to their normal lives. But confusion spread among the crowd as the angel spoke. Many believed that simply finishing the tasks would guarantee their survival, but the reality was far harsher. Even with the completion of every quest, survival was not guaranteed for everyone. The angel, noticing their naive thoughts, laughed softly, her voice tinged with amusement. She explained that only half of them would be allowed to live, reading the unspoken fears in their minds. Our hero remained calm and collected amidst the growing panic, his expression betraying no fear. It was clear to him that most of those around him were terrified, sensing that their lives were hanging by a thread. With a sinister smile, the angel assured them that not all would be taken, only a select few. The MC sighed inwardly, having heard these same words 99 times before. It was then revealed that only those between the ages of 15 and 29 would be forced to participate in this twisted game. As he listened, the hero couldn't help but reflect on how he never imagined he'd be trapped in this cycle, repeating the same game over and over. An older man in the crowd, realizing he was safe from the age requirement, smirked in relief. His smug reaction only fueled the anger of those who were not so lucky, escalating tensions. But before any conflict could erupt, Youngmin warned the crowd not to act rashly, lest they meet the same fate as the man who had defied the angel earlier. Spreading her wings wide, the angel announced that the time had come to begin. She revealed that approximately 1.9 billion people would be participating in this game. Her excitement grew as she declared that the explanation was over, and they would now move on to the actual game. A blinding white light enveloped everything, and the world around them vanished, leaving only the bodies of the participants. The hero was nowhere to be seen, and the angel explained that each participant had entered a space unique to them, a place visible only to the individual. She instructed them to shape their avatars in preparation for the soul transfer, much like customizing a character in a video game. This was a crucial moment, as they only had one chance to make their choices. As for the hero, he knew exactly what he would choose, having done this many times before. He began selecting the same appearance and traits he had used in his previous regressions. His in-game name, Black Scythe, just like before, the same ominous nickname. Moments after finishing the customization, the participants found themselves in a completely different setting, an open field where their avatars slowly came to life. The hero's chosen look was one he had favored time and again. His avatar now had jet black hair and piercing crimson eyes, with a taller, more imposing build than his real self. This form had become familiar to him, the embodiment of the hero he had tried to become in every cycle. This was his 100th appearance in the game. The body he now inhabited felt more like his true form, a mirror of the ones he had used in previous regressions. There was no need for him to acclimate, he knew this body as well as his own. As the avatars of the other players materialized into this new reality, many were visibly stunned by their own customizations. The MC noticed that several had designed their avatars to be strikingly attractive. But he knew all too well that this was one of the first mistakes a player could make. In this brutal world, the strong preyed on the weak, and drawing too much attention made one an easy target. The cost of such a mistake was high, death in the game meant death in real life. Just then, his gaze fixed on someone he had been anticipating, Hwang Youngmin, the high school bully who had tormented him relentlessly. As the Black Scythe, the MC felt a twinge of disappointment. He had hoped that Youngmin might show some growth in the game, but it seemed unlikely. The angel reappeared, greeting the players now that they had all been transported. She noticed how attached they seemed to their new appearances and mused aloud, her excitement barely contained, about how these pretty faces would fare when faced with true terror and despair. The humans from Seoul had been gathered here, a staggering 1.8 million participants, though some wondered why they only saw a fraction of that number. The angel laughed, delighting in the confusion. She revealed that the participants were spread across multiple spaces, with other angels overseeing different groups. Without further delay, the angel began to unveil more about the game. She explained that players could access a special kind of status window simply by imagining it. She gave an example, and before the MC appeared the familiar Black Scythe status window. But as he scanned it, he sighed in frustration. All his maxed out stats from his previous life had been wiped clean, leaving him at square one. Has everyone seen their status windows? The angel asked, her tone laced with mockery. A reminder of just how worthless you all are, she added with a smirk. The only way to survive and complete the 20 rounds, she told them, was to grow stronger. She then revealed the reward for completing this monumental task, a single wish, anything they desired. And, she added, they wouldn't have to pay any price for winning the game. The promise of such a reward set the players' minds racing, each contemplating their deepest desires. Sensing their eagerness, the angel's smile widened. To get things started, she announced, I've prepared a little gift for each of you today. When the players checked their inventories, they discovered something unexpected, a single item had been added. It was a random rune. The angel explained that this rune could be used only once and was usable even by those who were still at level 1. For now, it was the only item they would receive. The players quickly grasped that they could consume this rune just by thinking about the word use. The first to use the rune was Yongmin, who was visibly stunned by the outcome. The angel let out another chuckle as she noticed that several players seemed displeased with the effects of their runes. With a sly grin, she remarked that fate had dealt them these hands, and they had no choice but to accept them. As the players prepared for what was to come, the angel snapped her fingers after explaining the runes. Suddenly, particles of light began to materialize around them. A notification appeared before every player, detailing their first mission. As expected, the task seemed straightforward. Each player had to kill 100 goblins. However, the stakes were high. After this round, only half of the participants would be allowed to continue. Before long, the first goblin materialized. Some players, seeing the creature, remarked that it felt like they were inside a virtual reality game. But the angel quickly warned them not to get too comfortable. With a darkening expression and a menacing aura, she announced that she had summoned not just a few goblins, but a massive horde. The air filled with beams of light as more goblins appeared, and the initial calm on the players' faces quickly turned to panic. The angel declared that 10,000 humans would face off against 50,000 goblins in a brutal fight to the death. As the goblin horde surged forward, moving with terrifying speed, many players were paralyzed with fear, unsure how to react. Others began to retreat, their footsteps echoing in the tense silence. But not Black Scythe. With a determined expression, he charged headlong into the fray, showing no trace of fear. The players behind him watched in disbelief, wondering what he could possibly be thinking. The goblins were heavily armed and dangerous, yet Black Scythe's calm demeanor gave way to a murderous intensity as the monsters drew nearer. He lunged at the closest goblin, delivering a powerful kick that sent the creature flying several meters away. Black Scythe knew the importance of making a strong first impression, especially in a new group. He wanted to burn the image of his strength into the minds of those around him, and taking down the first goblin was the perfect way to do it. With the goblin down, he quickly snatched the dagger from its hand, knowing there was something even more important he needed to acquire. In his mind, it was crucial to demonstrate his power early on, to keep the other players from underestimating him or becoming a nuisance. The angel overseeing their group watched with growing interest, clearly amused by Black Scythe's display of skill. Realizing that all eyes were on him, Black Scythe knew he had to keep up the act. In a flash, he slashed through 2 more goblins that rushed him, leaving the onlookers in awe of his prowess. Other players began to wonder if Black Scythe was some kind of secret agent. His impressive nickname only added to their curiosity. They figured that perhaps the goblins were just the weakest enemies, given how easily Black Scythe had taken them down. A few of the more confident players even started to believe they could handle these monsters just as effortlessly. However, their overconfidence was short-lived. One player, who had let his guard down, was caught off guard by a goblin. The so-called weakest monster took him down with a single blow, shattering any illusions of an easy victory. Reality set in hard, and the group quickly realized that they were in serious danger. Panic spread as they witnessed the goblin killing the player, and soon, everyone was fleeing for their lives. Black Scythe observed the chaos unfolding around him. He recognized this as one of the many brutal lessons of the game, what he called the greetings of Inferno. By now, it was clear to everyone that this was no mere game. Survival had become the only thing on their minds. The humans who once sat comfortably at the top of the food chain were now the hunted. As panic set in, people began to run aimlessly, driven by the instinct to survive. Black Scythe recalled making the same mistake during his first playthrough, only realizing the harsh truth after his second regression: no matter how fast one ran, there was no escape from this dimension. One woman, in particular, came to a halt as she realized she was trapped by an invisible barrier, preventing any escape from the goblins. This situation served as a stark wake-up call for the modern humans, whose lives had been made easy by technology. The natural instinct to kill for survival had long been dormant in most of them, making it difficult for some to take their first life in the game. But hesitation could be deadly, as any moment of doubt could give the monsters the opening they needed to strike back. As the battle continued, some players managed to push past their limits, but the situation remained grim. The angel overseeing the scene found it all highly amusing. She remarked that despite goblins being only slightly larger than children, the players were struggling to defeat them, especially since the goblins attacked in groups and wielded daggers. Yet, amidst the chaos, one person caught the angel's attention: Black Scythe. She couldn't understand why this human was so different from the others. When she checked his progress, she discovered that he had already slain 70 goblins. The angel grew irritated, as the system only allowed her to see the number of goblins he had killed and nothing more. But she decided to brush it off, feeling that someone of her noble stature had no reason to concern herself with mere mortals. The battle raged on, and each time a player defeated a goblin, they earned experience points and gold, which would eventually help them level up. As for Black Scythe, his kill count had now reached 75, and he continued to press forward with relentless determination. Black Scythe continued to display his remarkable skills, effortlessly dodging every weapon the goblins hurled at him. A new wave of goblins rushed toward him, but with swift and powerful strikes, he dispatched each one with lethal precision. The blood of the monsters stained his hands, causing some of the goblins to hesitate and retreat from his relentless onslaught. However, Black Scythe showed no mercy, cutting down his foes with a single blow each time. His eyes grew darker and more dangerous as he hunted for more goblins to slay. Noticing that the goblins were starting to avoid him, he decided to take a momentary break, knowing that no one was currently challenging him. He checked his status window and saw that he had reached level 4, earning 6 extra stat points. Each level up granted him 2 additional stat points, which he allocated entirely to agility. This decision was strategic. Agility would enhance his speed, improve his attack rate, and increase his ability to dodge enemy strikes. In the early stages, agility was crucial. Black Scythe realized that with his rapid progress, the angel would undoubtedly take notice of him soon. He began to strategize the best way to complete the first mission. Suddenly, a circling dagger struck one of the goblins. Turning his attention back to the goblins, Black Scythe taunted them, asking if they really intended to stop attacking him. Despite his provocation, the goblins remained where they were, unimpressed. Sighing in frustration, Black Scythe knew he had no choice but to press on. In a flash, he vanished from his spot and reappeared across the group of goblins, retrieving the dagger he had thrown. The goblins took several seconds to comprehend what had just happened. But before they could react, Black Scythe unleashed a devastating round slash, cutting the entire group in half. With the goblins defeated, he leveled up again, and the system notified him that he had fulfilled the requirements for the first mission. A scythe of dark light enveloped him, signaling the completion of the task. Black Scythe mused that the first round had always been like this, straightforward but demanding. He knew he needed to push himself just a bit more to catch the angel's attention. The system congratulated him for being the first person to finish the quest in their designated zone and for securing the top spot in all zones. It took him a total of 10 minutes and 21 seconds to complete the task. With a satisfied grin, he relished in the achievement of securing rank 1 yet again. The significance of this accomplishment would become evident soon, as the top 3 players in each mission were awarded special prizes. For finishing first in his designated zone, he received a rare weapon selection coupon, the lowest rank of its kind. Moreover, for ranking first across all zones, he was granted a unique reward selection box, items that would undoubtedly provide a significant edge over the other players. Black Scythe decided to use the weapon coupon first. The system presented him with a list of rare weapons to choose from. He couldn't help but feel a bit humiliated at the thought of returning to these lower-grade weapons, yet he was still grateful to have them at the start. After a moment of consideration, he chose the stiletto, a dagger known to be the best for beginners. It boasted an additional agility stat and had an attack power of 15. With his new weapon in hand, he discarded the dagger he had taken from the goblins, deciding to save his other reward for later. Meanwhile, as Black Scythe reviewed his rewards, the goblins continued their relentless pursuit of the other players. When he checked his status window again, something unusual caught his eye. The title, Last Time Regressor, appeared, a title he had never encountered in his previous 99 attempts. Reflecting on this, he realized that the rune he had used earlier was the rune of regression, the very same rune he had received in his first attempt. This rune was what had brought him this far, though it vanished immediately after he consumed it. The only difference was the error that now appeared with the rune. Black Scythe had anticipated this outcome, knowing he couldn't keep rewinding time indefinitely. The rune confirmed that this was indeed his 100th regression, which was what triggered the Last Time Regressor title. Titles in this game were considered superior to runes, and the Last Time Regressor could only be obtained after a person's 100th regression. This title allowed him to spend a minute in soul form, during which he could resurrect with 30% of his health restored, a rare ability, typically only associated with priests. Black Scythe pondered the potential of this new title, realizing it could be crucial in his quest to win the game this time. Recognizing its value, he decided to keep the title hidden, setting it to private so that no other players or entities could see it. Expecting that other players who completed the mission would be arriving soon, he held out his hands, curious about their condition. His thoughts drifted to Youngmin, and as he scanned the area, he was relieved to see the guy still holding on, managing to survive the ordeal. Black Scythe anticipated that Youngmin would likely survive this round as well. A few moments later, golden lights began to illuminate the entire area. The angel continued to watch with a sly grin, realizing why she found the battlefield a bit dull. As more players managed to kill 100 goblins, the overall goblin population had actually decreased, diminishing the thrill of facing a horde of monsters. Acknowledging her mistake, the angel apologized, assuring everyone that she would restore the excitement. Her mocking words sent shivers down the spines of the remaining survivors, who understood the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, the bodies of fallen players began to vanish, which caught the attention of those still alive. They wondered why this was happening, and their concerns grew as another brilliant light appeared. This time, the sight of golden light offered no comfort, only dread. A new wave of goblins had been summoned, charging toward the weary players. Fear was etched on their faces as they faced this fresh onslaught, already exhausted from the previous battle. The angel, her face twisted with madness, gleefully informed them that she had summoned an additional 50,000 goblins to keep the feast going. With no other choice, the players braced themselves for the fight, and the once peaceful fields quickly descended into chaos. The goblins fought with relentless ferocity, while the players, driven by sheer will, managed to hang on. As time passed, more players completed the mission. Yongmin was among them, though he resorted to using others as shields to defend himself from the goblins' attacks, a desperate measure for desperate times. Eventually, only 1,000 participants remained. Black Scythe, however, simply sat with his eyes closed, bored by the scene. Having played this game 100 times, he had grown numb to the sight of death. Former participants like him were forbidden from assisting those still struggling to complete the mission, and the angel continued to watch the carnage as if it were mere entertainment. After a while, Black Scythe reopened his eyes, prompted by the notification that all 5,143 participants had completed the mission. Although these survivors had managed to stay alive, they had failed to eliminate 1,000 goblins. As they looked around in confusion, they wondered where all the monsters had gone. As the angel declared the mission over, she captured everyone's attention. With a voice full of mock sympathy, she addressed those who had failed, explaining that their fates were simply a matter of the game's rules. Their bodies began to fade, signaling their inevitable demise. Some, realizing they were only a few goblins away from survival, pleaded desperately for another chance. But their cries fell on deaf ears. The angel, now with a satisfied smile, clapped her hands and congratulated the survivors, urging them to be thankful for making it through the first round. She laughed as she praised the remaining humans, wishing them luck on their upcoming challenges. Before the players were sent away, the results of the mission were displayed. Black Scythe, as expected, had claimed the top spot. Each of the other players was also identified by unique nicknames. The system announced that Black Scythe's victory had earned him 1,000 gold, in addition to his previous rewards. He was informed that once he reached level 10, he could use the gold to purchase valuable items. As he received his gold, Black Scythe noticed more players avoiding eye contact with him, exactly as he had intended. His goal was to establish himself as the strongest, and he had succeeded. The angel, somewhat surprised, commented that she never expected the top-ranked player to be within her own domain. She then turned to Black Scythe, curiosity in her eyes, and asked him how he had become so powerful, wondering if he had been granted a particularly strong rune. However, before she could press further, she realized her mistake and cut herself off. Amused, Black Scythe teased her, suggesting she could check his status window to see his rune for herself. The angel, trying to maintain her composure, pretended that she could indeed see his rune. But only Black Scythe knew that she was bluffing. To further unsettle her, Black Scythe stepped closer and made a bold request. The angel's demeanor became increasingly unstable as she listened, unaware that this man had already spent 99 lifetimes in this exact scenario. With a calm but firm tone, Black Scythe expressed his dissatisfaction with the reward he had received for finishing first. He accused the angel of being stingy, a statement that shocked those around him. They couldn't believe someone would dare to demand more from such a ruthless entity. As expected, the angel's mood darkened, and she questioned him sharply about his audacity. But Black Scythe remained unfazed, repeating his request without hesitation. His unwavering confidence left the others in awe, realizing that this was no ordinary player. He desired greater rewards. The angel's irritation with Black Scythe's audacity was growing, but they locked eyes in a tense standoff. In the back of everyone's minds, unease was creeping in. The angel wondered if his victory in the mission had made this human arrogant enough to think he could look down on her. The notion that a mere human would dare to make demands of her was incomprehensible. Raising her hand, she prepared to strike him down, but hesitated as she realized she had already used that power and couldn't kill him. As she glared at Black Scythe, another idea occurred to her, something that should be enough to deal with him. She echoed his demands, slowly moving towards him. For the first time, she descended to walk on the earth, a rare gesture for someone of her stature. She clarified that normally, such requests would be rejected outright, but she hinted that she might consider it, privately. This offer meant they would speak away from the others, who were left watching in awe. Some of the remaining players admired Black Scythe as they moved away, intrigued by what kind of rewards he might receive next. Among them was Youngmin, who watched MC's back with a puzzled expression, unsure of what he was missing. Black Scythe noticed the glance and returned it, leaving Youngmin more confused than before. With a slight smile, Black Scythe continued walking. By now, they had distanced themselves from the other players, venturing deep into the forest. The angel, growing impatient, ordered Black Scythe to come closer. Inwardly, she mocked humanity, thinking they needed to be punished to understand their place. She considered them foolish and greedy, and as she walked, she rationalized that the rewards were beyond her control. However, she was determined to discipline Black Scythe for what she saw as his excessive greed. She led him to a secluded spot behind a large rock, an area where the system couldn't track them. Once they arrived, her true intent surfaced: she wanted to kill him. She knew there would be consequences if the authorities discovered she had killed a player for personal reasons, but her irritation overrode her caution. The angel had planned this meticulously, ensuring there would be no witnesses to what she was about to do, believing it to be the perfect plan. The angel's grin twisted into a maniacal smile, convinced that this human should have just stayed silent. She turned to face Black Scythe, asking what kind of rewards he was hoping to receive. But before she could react, she was met with a swift fist aimed directly at her face. The punch landed with a satisfying impact. In that moment, the so-called holy being was reduced to something far less formidable. Her expression darkened as she realized that she wasn't as invincible as she believed. Seeing the golden blood oozing from her wound, she was shocked that anyone dared to strike her. She quickly turned to flee, but when she looked back, Black Scythe had vanished from sight. Her heart raced in panic. Suddenly, she felt a sharp tug as Black Scythe reappeared and grabbed one of her wings. Fear surged through her as she realized what was coming. She cried out, demanding to know what he planned to do and begging him to stop. But Black Scythe was merciless. He snapped the wing as if it were nothing, showing no concern for her pleas. The angel screamed in agony, nearly losing consciousness as golden blood sprayed from the torn wing. Our protagonist looked at her coldly, telling her to stop whining. He then seized her other wing, ripping it apart with the same ruthless efficiency. As the final wing was destroyed, Black Scythe remarked that she wouldn't be able to run anymore. He then asked her if she was in pain. Her answer was an obvious yes. She felt as if she had lost a part of herself. Black Scythe then revealed that if her plan had succeeded, she would have been the one asking these questions, laughing at his suffering. The angel, desperate, tried to deny his accusations, insisting that he had lost his mind. But Black Scythe exposed a hidden dagger that had been concealed beneath her wings, confirming her true intentions. The angel fell silent, knowing she had been caught. Still, she attempted to talk her way out of the situation, but Black Scythe simply smiled and told her that her face had already betrayed her lies. He then called her by the name Beryl, which caught her off guard. She stared at him in confusion, asking how he knew her name. But Black Scythe merely smirked, dismissing her question. He pulled out his newly acquired dagger from his inventory, and Beryl's face twisted in panic. Her eyes widened as she demanded to know why he'd drawn his weapon. Desperation laced her voice as she threatened to obliterate him with a snap of her fingers, claiming she could end him in an instant. However, Black Scythe knew better. He was well aware that Beryl had already expended her power earlier, rendering her threat empty. This knowledge bolstered his confidence, leaving Beryl with no options. Clenching her teeth in frustration, she tried one last time to bargain for her life. She warned him that if he killed her, other angels would hunt him down for revenge. But Black Scythe wasn't fooled. He knew that angels were self-centered and indifferent to the fate of others, even their own kind. Realizing her threats were useless, Beryl switched tactics, pleading for her life. She insisted that sparing her wouldn't cost him anything, and that killing her wouldn't bring him any real benefit. She even tried to tempt him with the promise of valuable information that could help him succeed in future missions. But Black Scythe had already lived through this scenario 99 times before. He knew all the tricks and traps by heart. If he really needed information, he could have just tortured it out of her. Without hesitation, Black Scythe drove the dagger into Beryl's chest. The angel gasped in shock, realizing too late that she had underestimated her opponent. As the dagger was pulled from her chest, she collapsed to the ground, lifeless. A system notification flashed before Black Scythe's eyes, congratulating him for being the first player to defeat an angel. The title Angel Slayer was bestowed upon him, and 2 items materialized in his hands. One of these items was a vial labeled Angel's Blood, while the other was a crimson rune known as the Rune of the Slaughterer. Without wasting a moment, Black Scythe activated the rune, feeling its power etch itself into his body. The Angel Slayer title doubled all his stats, a reward that far exceeded his expectations. He recalled that during his 13th regression, he had first discovered the rewards for killing angels, knowledge that had served him well. The Rune of the Slaughterer had a unique effect. With each kill, it would boost all his stats by 1%, up to a maximum of 100%. As he surveyed his newfound gains, Black Scythe couldn't help but grin. These rewards were as good as an entire treasure trove. He knew that the other angels would be stunned when they learned he had claimed yet another powerful rune. But then, his expression darkened as he remembered there was one more reason he had killed Beryl, a reason that lay glowing faintly on the ground. It was the vial of Angel's Blood, a rare consumable that held the potential to transform its user into a Reaper. The only requirement was reaching level 10, the threshold at which players could choose their class in this deadly game. With that, we must conclude for today. If you enjoyed this part and want to see what happens next, please like and subscribe. Thank you.